Oh hey, don't mind me, I'm just tuning in for an exclusive preview of the next Connor's Game Room episode. I can't wait to see what they cook up next. Shh, it's starting. Peanut butter? That was genius! I'm so glad I paid $40 for that. The release of a brand new AAA game is always a huge event, and with millions of dollars poured into marketing in order to build up the hype, even the lead up to release could be considered an event of its own. Advertisers are constantly trying to one-up each other to make sure you're spending as much time as possible thinking about and talking about and pre-ordering their game. And they have all kinds of techniques that they use to occupy space in your mind. There's the classic throwing up a countdown on a shady looking website to purposefully generating controversy in the media to live tweeting a fake terrorist attack in Singapore? What the fuck? Imagine the emotional whiplash at hearing the terrorist attack you just heard about was fake, only to then find out there's a new Call of Duty coming out. No! But there's one type of marketing stunt that stands out for its ability to elicit particularly mixed feelings. I've never been this excited to be pissed! Prologue games were a little bit of a trend for a while. These were fairly short side games, usually meant as a teaser / companion piece to a larger upcoming full game. Kind of like a demo, but instead of a free download, people paid actual factual money for them. This kind of release was typically reserved for highly anticipated sequels that were taking especially long to develop. Fans were just tripping over themselves for a new trailer, developer interviews, any glimpse of hope that the game would actually be finished soon. So if you told them that for the low price of $40 they could actually play a small chunk of it, they ate that shit up. The most well-known example of a Prologue game is probably Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, but it wasn't actually the first. Back in 2004, Polyphony Digital released Gran Turismo 4 Prologue on the PS2. This was a preview build of Gran Turismo 4 featuring only about 50 of the planned 500 cars, 5 courses, and a making of DVD meant as an apology for delaying the full game to early 2005. They didn't apologize for charging £25 for it though. This never came out in North America, so everything I know about it is basically limited to what I could find in this one Eurogamer article that's old enough to vote. But apparently you couldn't even buy it unless you pre-ordered the full game. I guess they only wanted the real die-hard fans to play it, which seems odd considering the game itself is especially beginner-friendly. The main meat of the game is the school mode, where you go through all these license tests that teach you how to drive effectively. Which, like I say, is weird considering this game was pushed toward people who have presumably played some of the previous games and already know what they're getting into. There's also an arcade mode where you can enter into a quick race or a time trial, but only 12 cars are available at the start, with the rest unlocked through the school mode, which means experienced players will be forced to slog through it no matter what. The license tests in the school mode do ramp up in difficulty though, so there is still something there for the diehard fans. But since I'm neither a diehard fan or European, let's just move on to Gran Turismo 5 Prologue. Gran Turismo 5 Prologue released on the PS3 back in 2008, nearly 4 years after the full version of Gran Turismo 4. Polyphony Digital, like everyone else, was struggling with the weird architecture of the PS3, so they wanted to get something out to tide fans over, considering the full game was another 2.5 years away. It took so long that they'd changed the box art design for the PS3 by the time it came out. God, that annoys me more than it should. Now, I've never played Gran Turismo. I like racing games, but I usually stay away from the more realistic driving sim games in favor of the ones that are more arcadey and, you know, fun. But let's give it a shot. Hey, that was pretty good. Unlike the school mode in 4 Prologue, this game just has you going through events in 3 different classes, earning credits to buy new cars. You have to place in the top 3 in all events before you can move on to another class, and some events will limit what cars you're able to use, meaning you'll occasionally have to grind out some credits to buy the cars you need. The C-Class events start off really easy, like this one where I completely spun out, couldn't figure out which button was reverse, and still managed to recover without leaving first place. But then there were some that were surprisingly hard, like this one that locks you to a single car and makes you try and get a good lap time, and I tried over and over, but I could not get any better than bronze. Difficulty really ramps up once you get to B-Class, and this is where the grinding really sets in. Your C-Class cars aren't going to cut it here, so you're going to have to grind out those credits to get better, faster cars if you want to place higher than like 5th. If you judge this as an actual game, this feels like kind of a cheap way to mask the fact that there's not a lot of content here. There are over 70 cars to choose from, but only 6 courses, and unlike the variety of different locations from Gran Turismo 4 Prologue, all the courses here kind of feel the same. But this isn't a full game, so if you look at it bearing in mind that this was meant to keep fans occupied while the full game was finished, it makes more sense that they want you to grind a little bit. This was also the first Gran Turismo game to have online multiplayer, and while I can't play it anymore, when it was still active, it seems like this was the intended way to grind out the credits you needed. I'm also really impressed with the visuals. Most PS3 games can only pump out 720p, but this game not only managed 1080 but did it at 60 FPS, or close enough that I couldn't tell the difference. Well, for my first time playing Gran Turismo, that was pretty good. It got a little grindy at some times, but overall there's a pretty good skill curve as you move up to A-Class. I think it's a pretty good preview for 25 bucks. Oh, hang on, 2008's calling. Hello? Gran Turismo 5 Prologue is 40 bucks? What's wrong with my shoes? Yeah, 40 bucks seems like a lot for such a limited preview, especially considering there were much more important things to be spending money on in 2008. I mean, Wizard 101 had just come out. But this was my first time ever playing Gran Turismo, so maybe my expectations are a little off. I should check out the full game and see how it compares. Holy shit, that was way better. Even though this game isn't really for me, I still prefer my arcade racers. I can tell that there's just so much more here for the gearheads out there. More tracks, more cars, more performance settings to tweak. Someone with a lot more patience and interest than me could probably spend hours just tweaking their engine tuning. Compare that to the Prologue, which admittedly has a ton more content than your average demo, but I still don't think it's $40 worth. But moving on to probably the most infamous Prologue game, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. MGS5 stands out for a whole host of reasons, and not all of them are good. Development was long and troubled and went way over budget, and when they announced it, they pretended it was an indie game from a made-up Swedish studio that was completely unrelated to Metal Gear. This was done to gauge public reactions to Konami's new Fox engine without any kind of bias from Metal Gear fans, and it didn't work at all. They clocked it immediately. And of course the game was split into 2 parts, the first being Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, released in March 2014, about a year and a half before the Phantom Pain. The 2 were originally supposed to be released together, presumably with Ground Zeroes serving as a sort of tutorial level to the Phantom Pain, but because of the long development time, Ground Zeroes was split off in order to give fans a teaser for the full game. Considering that the Phantom Pain is also so wildly different from previous Metal Gear games, I imagine they also wanted to see how fans reacted to the new, more open-ended style of gameplay. And reactions were positive indeed! To the gameplay, people were pissed that it was $40. Gran Turismo 5 Prologue was also criticized for its price, but managed to get away with it a bit easier since its multiplayer focus gave it more replayability. While it had nowhere near as much content as a typical Gran Turismo, you could still get your money's worth out of the online multiplayer if you really tried. With Ground Zeroes though, all you had was a single story mission in a single map, and once you finished that, why don't you do it 4 more times? Oh, I get it, once for each number before 5, Kojima, you son of a bitch. Now the side ops in Ground Zeroes aren't exactly the same as the main story mission, but they all take place in the same map, and 3 out of 4 of them also involve sneaking around in the same way, so it kinda felt like it. The price to value proposition was so universally panned that even Konami seemed to agree that 40 bucks was a bit too much, reducing it to 30 before the game even launched, and then down to 20 a few months later before they started just giving it away. After this whole fiasco, it was clear that Konami learned their lesson and proceeded to more carefully evaluate the pricing of their future releases. Just kidding, they fired series creator Hideo Kojima, gave up on video games to focus on pachinko machines, then gave up on that to make games again, and released Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, which was more expensive and had less content than the Legacy Collection that came out on the PS3 in 2012. Honestly, that's impressive. I think the only way they could have fucked up more is if they said something like mobile gaming is the future. Kingdom Hearts 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue was technically a compilation, but it also came with a short preview of Kingdom Hearts 3 and somehow used that to justify being $15 more than the last compilation, despite having way less content. Yeah, if you compare the two, 1.5 plus 2.5 has 4 full games and remastered cutscenes from 2 more games, while Final Chapter Prologue has remastered cutscenes from a delisted mobile game, a demo of Kingdom Hearts 3, and a remaster of the 3DS game where arguably the story completely jumped the shark. Yeah, the one where those two kids turned themselves into a sword by fighting each other I could get behind, but this was too far. Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage, also known as the game with the title that's almost as long as the game. This is a roughly 2-hour-long romp that picks up at the end of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep and leads right up to the start of Kingdom Hearts 3, somehow skipping the 6 games that happened in between. So the game follows Aqua, who after Birth by Sleep was lost in the realm of darkness, and she was kinda depressed because her friend turned evil and also into an animated suit of armor and lost his memories. The evil version of him lost his memories, the suit of armor still had them. Oh, and he also turned into a big monster, but we didn't really know that was him yet, though a few people kinda suspected he was, and her other friend, he's the one who turned into a sword. Anyway, he got better, but he also went into a coma, so not that much better. Blink if you're still with me. Yeah, the plot here was kinda wacky, but that's more of a fault of the series as a whole up to this point rather than this game in particular. Kingdom Hearts 3 was meant to tie all the portable spin-offs together, and this game was meant to lead into Kingdom Hearts 3, so it had a lot of loose threads to wrangle. Throughout the game, you get to see Aqua confront some of her inner demons, some actual demons, and then you get an alternate perspective of the first game's ending, which is pretty cool. With a prequel like this, I like seeing them add more context to the events of the other games to change your perspective a bit when you replay them. Oh, so that's why Mickey wasn't wearing a shirt. And let's see, what else is there? You can give Aqua cat ears. Where the hell was this in the full game? Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot here. This wouldn't have been too out of place as simply an intro included with Kingdom Hearts 3, similar to the prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2. But by the time this came out in 2017, it had been about 4 years since Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced, and 3 years since they announced that they scrapped about a year's worth of work to switch to the Unreal Engine. Series director Tetsuya Nomura even admitted that the whole 2.8 collection was made so fans could play a little bit of Kingdom Hearts 3 sooner rather than later. It was nice to see some amount of hope that an actual release was coming for KH3, and to see that after about 10 years of spreading out across every handheld console you could possibly fit in your pants, the entire series was now available on one platform with only a few asterisks. But it still stung to see 2.8 priced so high compared to the last collection. And it'll barely even fit in your pants anymore. Looking back, it's easy to make fun of these prologue releases for being glorified, overpriced demos, but it's important to consider how powerful hype for a new release can be. Especially for long-running franchises with dedicated fans like Metal Gear and Kingdom Hearts, there's a certain level of hysteria that surrounds new releases where people will chomp at the bit to get any kind of info about the next game. Getting to actually play the game a little early, even if it was just a small part of it, was really exciting at the time, but ultimately I'm glad this is a trend that's mostly been left behind. Even at the time, through the new game hype haze, it did feel a little less like these companies were graciously granting us a sneak peek of their next big opus, and more like they were using their most dedicated fans to open up a new revenue stream. These days, with 5-year plus development cycles becoming the norm, it seems like publishers are a bit more careful about when they announce a game to make sure it'll be ready in a reasonable amount of time. Unless your name is Square Enix, then you'll release a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 and not say a damn thing about it for 3 years. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at managing my hype, so I'm less likely to fall for a scam like this.
New from the makers of Beans is the long-awaited sequel Beans 2. Now with more fiber, more protein, and more beans. You've never seen this many beans in one place before. Prepare your asshole, as Beans 2 will explode your colon.
Hi, I'm definitely not Hideo Kojima from Huckleberry Finn Studios. We hope you understand that while we're excited to bring you Beans 2, we've unfortunately had to delay release to 2035. However, we're happy to announce the Beans 2 Ground Zeroes 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue Experience and Knuckles. Available now for $39.99.
Damn it!